Hey, yeah, yo.
Yo, what's going on, people? We're back in the building, another episode of Soul Sessions. Today we're going to be continuing the theme Black History Months. We're going to be obviously, catching up off the back of our last episode and just continuing talking about some of the issues that we might face and some of the solutions that we can, we have in terms of trying to find a way to navigate just through, being Black, Muslim, and also young. And today we're going to be talking about being Black, Muslim, and female, and how that kind of the different type of maybe challenges and issues that we face within our community and outside of that. And today we got Hafsa and Khadija, who run two amazing platforms, that give our young people and females altogether a chance to, express themselves. And these are platforms that I've been involved in the past, that's right to say. And, I thought it was important that we get them today and we have this conversation. So, yeah, sisters, I'll let you guys introduce yourself and just give us a little bit about your background.
Right,
Yeah,
really?
All right.
Alright. Assalamu alaikum everyone, my name's Khadija and I am the founder of a platform called The Black Muslim Girl, which aims to magnify the voices of Black Muslim women.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. My name's Hafsa. I run a platform called the Dabiri Group, and under that we have a lot of different initiatives, including the Discovery Talk Show, which is a platform for young Black Muslims, and then we've also got some books that I've written for kids of all different races, but especially sort of centering Black Muslim characters, that we're also turning into a film, inshallah.
Excellent, that's excellent. So being on this topic of that you guys platforms, some would say are very specific in terms of your target audience and also the message that you're trying to put out there or the voices that you want to be heard. What was the need for such platforms, or why did you guys find it important, to create the platforms that you have created?
So are we always going to do this starting from the right?
Start with the Black Muslim Girl.
So, a very long story short, back in secondary school, I was always referred to as the Black Muslim Girl.
Mm-hmm.
So it was always like, oh, do you know Khadija? Oh yeah, I know her, the Black Muslim Girl. And I always kind of felt like I didn't really fit in. I was either too Black to be with the Muslims, because it's like, oh, how come you're Black and Muslim? Or too Muslim to be with the Blacks, because again it was like, oh, but you're Black, so like, how you Muslim? So I kind of had like a identity crisis, should I say, kind of finding who Khadija is away from being Black, being a woman, and being Muslim. Got to college, and it was kind of like the same thing as well. Like, I'll be doing my hijab in the toilet and I have sisters asking me, are you Muslim? Like, no, bad hair day. I just put on the hijab because I wanted to look like you. Nope, I'm not Muslim. Sorry, I wasn't allowed to wear this. So it was kind of like born from frustration, in a sense where it's like, I've got younger sisters, I've got nieces, and it's like I didn't want them to grow up in the same society where it's like they don't know who they are because there's a lack of representation of women that look like them. Like, growing up, I never had no Bashira the basketballer, like I never had no Hafsa Dabiri. All I had was my mum. I never had no Black Muslim women in sport. I never had no Black Muslim women platform. So it's kind of like, okay, there's definitely a need for it. There's definitely cause and purpose, and that was kind of like how it was birthed, and that's how the name came about as well. Because it's like, oh yeah, like everyone refers to me already as, oh yeah, I know that Black Muslim girl, the one that wears the hijab, innit? So yeah, and then I just took it from there.
Okay, makes sense. Yourself, Hafsa?
Yeah, I think it's quite the same. I think it was born out of a need to like fulfill something that wasn't there when I was growing up. And I had quite similar experiences. I think I grew up in Southeast London. I went to school in Tooting. So I went to Arasala, which is like predominantly Muslim, but sort of East African and sort of Asian, Arab majority. And in those spaces, like, my Muslimness was always questioned. I remember my mum had to come in to get the teachers to take my Quran recitation seriously because they would literally not listen to me and just assume, oh yeah, she's a Black Muslim girl, she probably doesn't know Quran. Meanwhile, my mum's taught me like all of the surahs kind of thing, and I've sort of like advanced past the level that I was at. or put in class. And it was just the dynamics like that, I think, of parents having to come in and prove my Muslimness within those spaces that sort of made me think, okay, look, how am I going to reconcile this? And then I moved to a public school that was predominantly Black Christian, and I was seeing like, you know, grime culture, Afro beats, you know, all of this kind of stuff. And I was like, does this really fit in with my Islam? And, you know, being in those spaces, my Blackness was always questioned at that point. And so I think that's why sort of the home is really important, and the idea of community, because the only reason I was able to see a positive sort of twist to all of those experiences was because I had my mum at home who would be like, you know, those kids that are saying stuff, you've got to prove them wrong kind of thing. And those teachers who don't want you to do well, or they think that your skin colour is something to, you know, look down upon, you've got to prove them wrong. And I think that's where the platforms kind of came from, because it was like, there was so much missing when I was younger, and alhamdulillah, like for my mum and my dad, but I want my kids to grow up in a situation where their needs are different, and they don't need the things that I needed back then, and they're sort of inspired to see themselves as full and complete human beings. And I think one of the things as well is that when you have these scenarios, it can really affect your spirituality and how you see Allah and Islam. And I don't want my kids to have that. I don't want people to have that. I don't want young black Muslims to be questioning their faith. I think we want to have the same obstacles of, you know, getting up to pray Fajr, not questioning why you have to pray Fajr kind of thing. So yeah, I think that was it for me.
Okay, let's explore the dimensions of being too black for the Muslims and too Muslims for the black community. How did you navigate, and how did you kind of come to terms, or how did you find your way through that and dealing with that? Because that's something a lot of, I would say, reverts find in terms of, obviously, when you embrace Islam and you come from especially a non-Muslim community who are Christian or whatever background, might be Rastafarian, whatever it may be, and they see you embracing a religion that is built for the Arabs or the Asians or something like that, you find it a bit difficult having to explain to them that, no, Islam is this and that, and all about the history of Islam and Africa and things like that. But obviously, as someone, you know, two girls who like born into Islam, how did you find, or how did you deal with that? Because I'm sure that there'll be a lot of girls, or you know, who have been through a similar experience or might be going through that experience. How did you guys, you know, were able to kind of deal with it?
Really?
Okay. I think for me it was seeking knowledge. I think it's even probably in like the last 5 years I've been around a lot of different types of Muslim. And even when I thought, okay, I found a balance, I would get told that, oh, okay, if you sit in a circle after Fajr and, you know, do your du'as and your, you know, just remembrance of Allah together, that's innovation, right? And I think when you take your faith from people instead of going to people of knowledge, that's when you have like differing understandings. Okay, is my Islam actually my Islam, or is my culture, you know, a part of Islam? And I think understanding that, you know, the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, you know, he created us in different tribes and nations to get to know one another. It was intentional. It wasn't a mistake that you were made Nigerian or Caribbean or South African, and it's something you have to embrace. And then Islam comes to purify that culture rather than get rid of it completely. So it's about selecting the things that allow you to still have that relationship with your culture, but keep you within the fold of Islam as well. So just seeking knowledge, and I think finding the right people to ask those questions too.
100%, I agree with you. I think there's even if I remember correctly, don't want to quote something that's not right, but I think there's a hadith that says take what's good and leave what's forbidden. Yeah. I think for me, it was more of a thing of learning that staying true to myself was staying true to Allah. So I had to go back and question, who is Khadija? What does Khadija stand for as a Muslim woman? Because before anything, I'm Muslim first. So it's, what does Khadija stand for, and who does she stand for as a Muslim woman? What does Khadija stand for, and who does she stand for as a black woman? And does the values and principles that I stand for as a black woman get in the way or are in some kind of conflict with who I am as a Muslim woman? And if I found that it was, then it was like, okay, cool, that's got to go, because I'm Muslim first. And I think the problem, I don't want to say it's a problem, but the rhetoric that a lot of people have is that when you're born into Islam, you find it very, very easy. And it's like, oh, like, you don't go through hardships and all of this kind of stuff. Like, you lot are lucky you were born into Islam. Alhamdulillah, it's a blessing from Allah, it's a ni'mah from Allah that we were born into Islam. But I feel like there was a time where I found it very, very hard, because it's like when you're surrounded by black people that aren't Muslim, and then you have like the black culture, and you have the music, and you have this, and you have that, and you have that, and you're like, oh, like, oh, the vibes. But then it's like, oh no, I can't. I'm Muslim. Does that mean Islam's boring? Does that mean I can't do this? Does that mean I can't do that? So what that took me to was finding out who Khadija is and learning to stay true to who I am, because I'm a divine creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So me staying true to who I am means that I'm staying true to Allah. So anything that wasn't within that journey or that didn't fit in well had to go. And it's a very hard it's a very hard thing to do, especially in this generation that we live in now, where it's like everyone wants to fit in, everyone wants to feel a part of something, no one wants to feel lonely, sort of thing. But then I kind of had to relearn and tell myself, like, listen, prioritize what's important, what's not, sort of thing. And alhamdulillah, like, when I started getting rid of the things and the people that weren't true to who I was, Allah started bringing the people that were going to help me stay true to who I was and help me stay connected to Allah. So I think for me, yeah, that's literally what it was, just learning that staying true to who I am as Khadija, as a black Muslim woman, needs to make sure that I'm staying true to Allah, and there's like a straight connection between me and Allah. And that's kind of, yeah.
Okay, so like dealing with like Muslim communities and stuff like that, did you guys ever feel like you had to kind of explain your whole identity and what it meant in terms of, you know, what you were doing? It's like, what are you doing here? Did you feel like you had to explain a lot of the times growing up why you were in the environment that you was, even though you felt like you belonged in that environment, just because by default you're Muslim, you should be in Muslim surroundings, in Muslim communities, and a part within you know, the Muslim activities? But did you find that you had to, because I'm only speaking from Reva perspective, where you enter spaces and you find a lot of difficulties in terms of people accepting you for being in that space, and the questions asked. But then when I got children of my own, so they're born Muslim, but they can easily be, you know, looked at as people who are reverts, you know what I'm trying to say, as growing up. So what are the things that you felt like you had to over-explain? Because I know that a lot of, you know, Muslims from different cultures watch, you know, the podcast and stuff like that, but what are the things that you have to deal with that you feel like they should be, and is it our job to educate them, or should they educate themselves?
I think especially with the BLM movement and sort of the impact that had on the Muslim community a couple of months ago in terms of the discussions of anti-blackness we were having, I think that was a question that was asked a lot as to whether or not black Muslims have to sort of be platformed and like showed around like a circus and have to sort of explain their traumas and experiences for other people to sort of be like, oh, subhanallah, okay, we've got to do something different. And for me, I think if you've got the ability to do that, then it's definitely something you should try and do because of the benefit it can have in terms of educating. But I wouldn't say that it's our responsibility per se. I would say that our responsibility is to do our part in any way that we can. So if you know, having those discussions and expressing that trauma and those experiences isn't comfortable for you, and it's not something you can have the confidence to do, then I wouldn't impose that on you. But if you definitely sort of have the voice and the platform and you're not talking about it, you're going to be questioned about it, because within those spaces it is a form of oppression for black Muslims to come in and you know, I've seen situations where they've been physically harmed and, you know, violence has been imposed upon them. So, you know, you will be questioned about those things. So it's about doing what's within your capability. But I also think that it should be less about, okay, black Muslims and more about Asian and Arab Muslim communities and leadership thinking about their actions and thinking about what they're doing and the impact that it's having, and really just addressing their own prejudices and biases and seeing whether or not that's having an impact on, for example, the khutbahs that they're giving and the language that they're using to describe black people and how that's alienating their community, for example. So yeah, I think, I wouldn't say it's the responsibility of black Muslims to do so, but we definitely have a part to play within that process.
Completely agree. I feel like you've taken everything I could possibly have said.
So with your platforms then, with your platforms, no, I wouldn't say responsibilities. What are the, like, what's the amana, what's the trust that is upon you guys you know, as, you know, young black Muslim women, in terms of giving that first impression, not maybe first impression, but a lot of the times maybe there's people who are ignorant and they think to themselves, you know what, I've got to sort out my know-how in terms of what our black sisters are going through. Let me check out what, you know, platforms are really, you know, got something to say, and then they come on your platform. How important do you think it is for you running a platform like that you showcase, or what you do put out there doesn't also further maybe send the wrong message?
Yeah,
What type of pressure do you put yourself in terms
So
of
when it comes to TBMG, one thing that I've always been is trauma free. And I say that to say that I feel like when it comes to when we as a community speak about black people or black Muslims in general, the topic is always the trauma that we face, and it's always the what's the weird questions that you get asked, or what's this and what's that. So one thing I try to do with TBMG is not focus on the trauma of black Muslim women. You know what black Muslim women go through. That's the reason why this page is created. But more to share success stories of black Muslim women, more to give them a platform where their voices are heard, they can have discussions of their own. So for me, I try to make it as open as possible, even though for every message that I get, oh sister, don't you think you should change the name? No, I don't think I should change the name. It's called The Black Muslim Girl. If I wanted to call it something else, I would have called it something else. We're not changing the name.
Why did they ask you to change the name though? Like, why do you feel like they...
A lot of the time, sorry, I have to do that laugh. Because this conversation, a lot of the time it's because this is the famous one, I'm dividing the ummah.
Yeah, I've got that. I've got that a million times.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah.
Oh no, dividing the ummah. So that's why I get told to change the name. It's like, oh, like, don't you feel like you're pushing other communities away and this, that. But my thing is, and I say this, no offense whatsoever, I grew up in a very multicultural Muslim community. So I grew up to seeing like Asian Muslim Women Network, or a mosque called the Bengali Mosque, and like I grew up to all of these sort of things, and they were never questioned. It was just seen as the norm, you know. It's normal to see these things, but the moment it's black and it's Muslim, all of a sudden, oh, you're dividing the ummah, oh, why don't you change the name? But it's like no one else gets asked these questions, or like none of the other names are ever questioned, but the moment it's us, all of a sudden, oh yeah, you're dividing the ummah. But for me, like I said, I'm Muslim first. So that is kind of how I work with TBMG, because I understand at the end of the day, I know this is a platform for black Muslim women. I'm Muslim first. And like you rightly mentioned, I don't want to do something that's going to turn someone away, which I think completely defeats the purpose of having the platform to begin with. So if we do get like people from the outside community that want to be involved, happily, like it's really like, it's hard sometimes, because it's like, well, like we did set up this platform for black Muslim women, but then if there's other sisters that want to be involved, or like they want to learn something new, alhamdulillah, come, like we're not gonna shun you away or send you away sort of thing. But like Hafsa said, I don't think it's like our responsibility per se. I feel like we can open the door and then you choose whether or not you're going to walk in, but we're not going to force you to come in. The door's open, basically. That's how I see it.
I think I agree like 95% with you.
I need to know the 5% you don't agree.
No, I do agree. I think for me, I've had a lot of conversations about like black Muslim spaces, and I think that a lot of the time when people come and say that they're dividing the ummah, or that we're dividing the ummah rather, I think they're failing to see that there's an issue that needs an immediate solution right now. And the issue is that there's black Muslims who are not able to identify with their faith, or that they're not able to find that balance between existing in the West and being a black Muslim, and you know, finding their path towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you have those issues, I can't come into your community and start doing training sessions for the rest of my life when because I teach kids, and whenever we have conversations, they're always questioning their faith, always questioning their blackness. Young kids growing up right now in the space of TikTok and grime and that all sort of painting their youth, it's very, very difficult to talk to them about Islam. It's not something they want to hear. So if we don't have spaces where they're going to be able to listen, they're going to get lost before I have the chance to even like sort of work on the outside community and make them accept the kids for who they are, kind of thing. So when I create my spaces, especially, it's like a short-term solution. It's not something long-term. Like the long-term is that we want the Ummah to be united. We don't want there to be racism, and we want Black Muslims and South Asian Muslims and Arab Muslims to be able to exist in the same space, and we don't want to have to divide ourselves, because when we look at the Prophet ﷺ and the societies that existed back then, there was no the Arab Muslim society type thing. Like everybody was sort of just united, and Islam came to them in different ways, and they were able to unite under the name Islam, sort of thing. So when we have our talk shows, for example, we don't even we don't call it like the Black Muslim show, but Black Muslims, I think because of the platform that I've created, they know that when they walk into that space, they're going to feel safe. And they're going to find people of knowledge within that space to ask questions to, who can talk to them about the things that they're going through. They're going to find elders like Brother Musa, who will talk about their experiences, and they'll actually relate to them, and they'll talk to them about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu and hadith and stories of the Sahaba in ways that they would understand and be able to relate to. And I think that's what the important thing is. But another question that you asked is that when it comes to like responsibility, like what responsibility do we have with the platform? And I get scared. I get super scared, even though I can speak very confidently about it. When people say, oh, you're dividing the ummah, that hits me hard, because it's like, I'm going to be questioned about this on the Day of Judgment. And I do not want to put myself in a position where I've done something that is only there to suit what I think is good, not actually what Islam requires us to do. And so when it comes to building the platforms, I always make sure that there's like shuyukh there that like I've asked every question to. That's why nobody can come to me and be like, oh, Hafsa, look, this is completely haram, because it's like, no, I've questioned myself a million times, and then I've asked other people to do the same. And then I've asked other people to do the same, because it's not about me. It's not about what's going to make me feel better. It's about what the world needs. And then also, like, we're not here forever. As much as we want to make this world better, there's the whole idea of sort of activism and people getting upset when they don't see things changing. But at the end of the day, you don't even know if tomorrow is promised, kind of thing. 100%. So you just have to do what's going to make today better and now, and better the community right now, inshallah. So yeah, no, I get scared. There's a huge amount of responsibility.
Add on to that, I think like when it comes to owning these platforms, one thing that I've learned is the most important thing is your niyah and your intention. That's where everything goes back. Like when we're talking about responsibility, I feel like that is the root of everything that we do. Because like you said, it is very scary. I can't lie. It's very, very, very scary. Because sometimes I think, oh my gosh, like, alhamdulillah, I've managed to set up this platform and like people really like it. And like, people are coming to it and all of this kind of stuff. We do events, we're international now, this, that. But what about if in the eyes of Allah,
it's not accepted? That's the point.
It's like, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Like, it doesn't matter if 5,000 people like it, do you know what I mean? If
Honestly,
Allah's not thinking it, then what am I really going to do? Do you know what I mean? And I feel like that's why, for me, I always have to take it back to my niyah, and I always have to take it back to my intentions. Why am I doing it? What is the purpose behind it? And how can I make sure that, yes, I understand it is for Black Muslim women, but how can I make sure it's still rooted in Islam, so it's still accessible for all types of Muslims? You know what I mean? Like, I know that there's a part of it that's still leading back to Allah. So even if like Allah doesn't like 90% of it because it's for Black Muslim women, there's a percent of it that's just strictly Islam. No race, no, this is just Islam, do you get what I mean? But yeah, I think it just goes back down to intention. And yeah, 100%. I think that's what it is for me.
Yeah, I think it's difficult. It's important because obviously the generations above you guys, like myself, people like Abu Bakr, Roadside to Islam, obviously we're starting with that project and that platform, we encountered a lot of difficult obstacles in front of us. People who were like, yeah, what you're doing a street thing, is it for a certain type of people, blah blah blah. And it's always difficult. One of the things that we were able to do, especially with us in terms of in our conversion to Islam, is that one of the first things that we've done, and a lot of people in that era of Muslims and people who converted to Islam, we used to travel a lot. So you find that whether the brothers were students of knowledge or people who were very knowledgeable of the deen, they spent time away from this country, time living with Muslims, time understanding Islam, time getting to know how Islam works as a community hub, as a spiritual hub, as also something that is like state run, that's implemented within the laws of the country, so that then you get to have a full broad understanding of Islam and where it is and where it isn't. So then on our return from places like Egypt or Morocco or Jordan or Yemen or Saudi, you have a different scope of what Islam is and what Islam isn't, rather than just having a very Western approach to Islam, because how you're able to practice Islam in a village in Africa is not how you're going to be able to practice it in London. So there's going to be a lot of things that are just straight no-nos, but then you find yourself in London where you find, like, example, what deemed to be extreme, even in places like, example, living in Egypt and Yemen, even if you follow the same type of madahib or manhaj, you find that what you can implement is different, because the state might not allow you to implement certain things. So now you have to follow what the state does, or you end up in prison and then you can't see your family, blah blah blah. But here we kind of have a free reign for people to do what they want to do, because we don't have that type of state interference at that level where if you set up a social media account tomorrow talking about Islam and calling yourself something Islam, something dawah, and you're just talking about it, people are going to sign up, they're going to listen. No one ain't really going to bother you unless you say something crazy extreme. But in terms of corrupting Islam with your wrong understanding, no one's going to knock on your door and say, like, hold on, that's not from Islam, that's not permissible. You have to say something which is a threat to the state for them to say, hold on, what's this guy talking about? So then you find with that it's problematic, whereas you find in Muslim countries you can't even give us a Friday sermon because it comes from the state. They send the sermons through every week and they tell the imams what they have to give in a sermon and what they talk. Places like Dubai, Saudi, wherever, the sermons are state run, and you just can't do your own thing. So you find here it's a bit difficult, because as a young person you're doing your own thing because you're trying to make a change, and not everything that we do as young people we're going to look back at it and think like, you're just going to look back and just kind of just feel like you can't even watch your old videos. You think, what was I talking about? What's going on? You look back at your certain age and you think, what was he on? Me and Abu Bakr do that all the time. We think, what the hell were we talking about? Like, it didn't make sense, but you grow and you learn and you come to understand that even though at that time there we were solidly like thinking what we were doing was correct, and not to say it wasn't, because from till today our videos have benefits and stuff like that. By example, one of the things, and this is what I wanted to ask you, one of the things that people used to say to us is that you are like the first of something, and if you don't regulate it, those that will come after you will just be worse.
100%.
And then we look back today at the people who've come after, and it's crazy. So we say that without the regulation, what's the black Muslim girl in 20 years from now? What's the debris group? Who comes after and then follows in you lot's footsteps? If we don't kind of create those, firm type of principles in terms of moving forward, like you said, connecting to people of knowledge, having that around you, making sure that they guide you, because a lot of the stuff that even I do, it can be something as simple as giving charity that we think is a good idea. Like one thing we've done like a raffle where you can enter, go to the imam. That's raffle, boy, it's a bit dangerous. You know what I'm saying? That's like a bit like what they call it, it's like the lottery. You know what I'm saying? Is it permissible, is it not? Some people say yeah, but it's like even when you're doing good, we're faced with obstacles, and we're Muslims. And what I find that's difficult for us is that sometimes we end up on the wrong end of results, because we're trying to we're dealing with people who don't give a damn. You know what I'm saying? There's people who don't like, so you would find another organization that's led by another community who does raffles all day long, and then they draw in that group of Muslims. They could be from whatever, South Asia or Arab, whatever, and that group of individuals who have a similar organisation to yourself are able to just draw in the young people and help them and do a lot of the stuff, but their means are not means that you see are fit for you to do as a Muslim, right? So then you don't do that. So then you find yourself fighting these obstacles like, how do we navigate, how do we make this work when there's so much, walls up? Like you said, is Islam boring? Can't we do this? Can't we do that? But I just feel like, again, it's just where we live. The spaces that we're in, living in the UK a lot of the time, what we call fun, is it fun? Who said it was fun? Like, what makes it fun?
Exactly.
What constitutes it to be something that you find enjoyable? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Then you live somewhere else. Like I said, for us to travel away and to spend a lot of time away, we found different ways to engage in, like, what's these birds that fly? They hawks that fly in the desert and they come back to falcons or something like that.
Eagles.
Are they eagles? Yeah, so things like that we used to do in Egypt. Go out in the desert and you just have tea, chill around the fire, you let the bird go, it goes away, does its prey, comes back. And we found that to be something that we never would have done in a million years. But then we start to find it more enjoyable the more you do it. So you just feel like living in different places. So coming onto that is that sometimes we do so much to create, and that's including myself, and I know brothers that are trying to make a difference and elders, is that we do so much to try to create platforms and spaces for us to feel comfortable. But as a younger generation, do you guys think is it something that you look to achieve staying here in the West, or does your generation ever look back to going back to places like Africa and the Caribbean to live permanently?
I don't intend to stay here.
Give me 2 years.
I do not intend to stay here.
I have no intentions of staying in this country whatsoever.
Is that common in your age group, would you say?
I think there's certain types of
I
people
think
in our
certain,
generation.
definitely certain types. I mean, there's a lot of us that do want to stay here, and there's also a lot that want to.
How do they see themselves navigating through the type of obstacles that we find staying in this country with some of the things that we face, especially, dealing with the issues? Because us as a community, not only do we have the issues of being Muslim, young, whatever, we have the issues of being black in a Western society with all the connotations that comes with in terms of the difficulties that we face. We had Craig Pickney up here last couple of weeks ago, and he just talks about, the fact that as soon as a black child is born, they're already facing systematic racism in terms of the things that they're going through. In terms of that, you can look at statistics that will say black children within the hospital setup face less care than their counterparts from the minute that they're born, in terms of how the nurses look after them and the things that they go through. Why are they just still in hospital? They just been born a couple of days ago, and they're already facing statistics that are going against them in terms of just moving forward and living as individuals. So how does the new generation, how do they kind of see themselves dealing with these type of things?
I think with things like that, we always assume the grass is greener, but I think different societies have their different issues, and I think wherever you decide to grow up or have children or start a family, you have to think about the different conflicts and obstacles that they're going to have to go through and which ones you'd rather them go through. And I think different societies will challenge your faith in different ways, but 100%. I think the West is very different in how it is going to challenge us. And I don't want my kids growing up here. I don't even want sort of my family and my community to be here, just because I think that as much as we can do to sort of put a plaster on it, there's just too much at risk.
100%.
And at the end of the day, if you've got the option to move and sort of go to a place that's sort of going to help you in terms of deen and allow your kids to grow up a bit more comfortably surrounding the religion and memorize Quran and really connect with their faith in a way that's authentic and meaningful, then you should take that opportunity, I think, to make that move.
I agree. I think you have to be honest with yourself as well. Ask yourself why it is you're trying to migrate, why it is you're trying to move. One thing I always say is I'd rather be called Abid in Saudi Arabia than the N-word in the UK. I know, or I'd rather be called a foreigner somewhere in Africa or Nigeria if I was to go back to Nigeria than be called the N-word in the UK, because there's a level of comfortability that I will get within both countries that I will never, ever, 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 emphasis on the ever, get in the UK. Do you know what I mean? And it's about the older you get, especially as a woman, we are the nurturers. We have to start thinking of these type of things, you know what I mean? And we have to start asking these sort of questions like, where do I want my child to grow up? How
100%.
am I trying to nurture my child? And I know for a fact I'm not trying to raise a child in the UK. Not that there's anything wrong with the UK, but like I said, I'd rather be comfortable in a country like Saudi Arabia where I know Deen is implemented there. We can learn, we can grow spiritually, than be in the UK. And one thing I'm not trying to do is have my kids fighting the same battle that I was fighting. It doesn't make any sense. So if I can get myself to a place where I can happily move to wherever I want and I know it's safer for my kids, then yeah, let's do that. But it doesn't make sense for me to now have kids and then they're going through the same battles, fighting the same wars that mummy and daddy faced. For me, I just think get what you need from this country. And
I
go,
think to add to that, I was listening to something the other day that was basically saying that it's less about sort of the context and the climate, but more about the individuals. Because if your iman is strong enough and sort of the parents are looking after the household and sort of being aware of what the kids are listening to and, you know, who's teaching them and that kind of thing, that can, you know, that can negate a lot of things living in the West. Like
100%.
if you don't have that level of confidence in your faith and that level of sort of understanding of what your responsibility is in terms of like teaching your kids and that kind of thing, even if you're here or in Saudi,
100%,
you're not, you know, the outcome is going to be the same kind of thing. So yeah, I think
100% I agree. It's difficult, and a lot of the stuff, like even with as much as we've done you know, of used platforms to support the Muslim community, to support the next generation, to support young people who are kind of finding themselves, you know, in difficult situations and not really understanding where they stand. And that's like Muslims across the board, like young men who find themselves in prison, selling drugs, getting in gangs, whatever the case may be. A lot of the time for me, it's like being able to find Orthodox Islam and have an Orthodox understanding of the religion. It's like as simple as it may sound, it has a lot of the answers, you know what I'm trying to say, because you can see where Orthodox Islam is not being implemented and you can see the problems, and it can always take you back to knowing that having an Orthodox understanding of Islam is Islam in its purity, and there is no mistakes, there is no issues, you don't find a problem within societies that follow Orthodox Islam. We don't find those societies today because no one has it in totality. But when we look back at the past and we look back at the people of the past and stuff like that, we get to see how that was run. Example, you know, a lot of the time, you know, we people will mention Bilal radiallahu anhu in terms of being black and stuff like that, but they weren't. Even though black in the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ wasn't an issue, because Bilal was far from the darkest companion amongst the Prophet and his companions, but the issue that they had, which we have today, was tribalism, being from another tribe, being from another place. The fact that Bilal, even though his dad was from Croatia and was an Arab, that his mum wasn't, and she was from, you know, Ethiopia, Abyssinia, that was an issue. But what did the Prophet do? He made sure that somebody who was from another tribe, especially a tribe that was looked down at the time, or people that was looked down at the time, not for their colorism or complexion, but rather for just they had so much emphasis on coming from good lineage, good tribe, blah blah. That was more important to them than anything. So the fact that, you know, he came, or his mother was from a people who wasn't looked at, he kept him close. So whenever the call to prayer was made, he was there to be seen. So this tribe, this, you know, type of, you know, group of people that you lot not rating, they're the one, this man who represents that, or at least his mother does, is going to be the one that's going to like get us ready to pray, get us close to Allah and always be close to me. And I feel like that representation is very important. And I feel like today, when we try to create representation for our young children or for the black community, like you said, people start getting upset, like, what you're doing that, you're dividing the ummah. But really sometimes it's just to create visual representation so people can see.
I think it's also about what type of representation though as well,
100%.
because we get so obsessed with the idea of we want a black Muslim woman there
on the
and
magazine,
there,
and trust me, we don't.
We
don't.
Yeah,
this was another question I was going to lead up to, in terms of when you're trying to have this level of representation, how important is it that you know your criteria is very, you know, like you take a lot of time in your criteria and choosing the type of people that you guys support and promote.
Yeah.
So
That's the only thing that's important, to be honest.
100% is the only thing that's important. And I think for me, it's understanding that we're Muslims. We're not going to fit into spaces. We don't need emphasis
to fit
on the
into every
need
space,
to fit into every space. Do you know what I mean? Prophet
So
Muhammad
where do we
sallallahu
cross
alaihi
the
wasallam.
line? Because sometimes we find people in a space which is clearly haram, but we love them for the sake of Allah, and they're from our community, brothers and sisters. And sometimes we feel like, sometimes we even, as much as it's public, would overlook it. So somebody might be doing something or might be in a space where we're like, we wouldn't want that for our children, for anybody. But because we don't have a lot of people that are already out there on platforms trying to bring our community forward, we're limited in who we do associate with and who we do promote. So then we start to overlook some major faults that are done within the public eye. How do you guys get around that? Because there's a lot of people that I would say openly that I don't support a lot of the things that they do, and I feel like me and Abu Bakr for the longest have been asked the question, why don't you do more for the black Muslim community, or why are you not more in black Muslim spaces, blah blah blah. But then we always ask ourselves, the most important thing to us is having that stance of Orthodox Islam, because we I don't like, and I've always found that people who have that stance, I've always felt close to them in terms of just family, because they get it. I don't have to explain the trials that we go through as a community. They just get it. They're like, yeah, I get it. Like, it's clear for me to see. And I find that the more that people are not connected to, you know, correct understanding of Islam, is I find myself explaining myself. So then I think to myself, example, you can be in a setting with a group of girls and your goals are different. The only thing you share is this: we're Muslim. But you're thinking what you're trying to get out there, like you're trying to get us in more of these spaces, and you think like you guys rightly said, you don't want to be in those spaces, but that's what they're pushing for, that's what they're ambassadors for. But then you're all grouped in this one space of black Muslim girls. How do you navigate through that?
I think one is being honest and having personal values, principles and boundaries, and setting them and living by them, because I feel like if you're a person with no values, no principles, then you have nothing to live for, to be honest with you. And I kind of take that into consideration even when I am working with TBMG. So for example, if you go on our page, you won't really see any sisters without hijab, even though I want it to be inclusive to sisters that don't wear hijab. I understand the importance of hijab, so I won't post a sister that doesn't have hijab. It doesn't mean that sisters that don't wear hijab can't come to our events or can't feel among. They definitely do, and some of them, alhamdulillah, have started wearing hijab because of it. But that's not the type of representation that you're going to find on TBMG. For example, when you see like these models in these magazines, story for that other day, it's like, and people are like, oh my days, wow, like black Muslim women, and she's on Vogue. And oh my gosh, like it's such a good like platform, and like, oh my gosh, wow. It's like, again, that's not something I'm supporting. Like that is not the type of representation that TBMG stands for. So I'm not reposting it. I'm not clapping for it. I'm not commenting under the pictures, because like I said, that's not the type of representation that I'm trying to see, and that a lot of black Muslim women are trying to see as well. Like, if we're keeping it real, what is a picture of someone in a swimsuit? What is that actually going to do for me? Like, as a 15-year-old black Muslim girl, what is that going to do? Okay, I'm going to see you in the swim pool. Okay, Dad, can I go swimming? Like, what does it actually do for me? So I think a lot of the time we have to start being purposeful, because I feel like a lot of the representation that we have when it comes to the black Muslim community and the Muslim community as a whole, you can tell that there's no purpose in it whatsoever. Like, people are just doing things for the sake of being in a room and being
fulfilling
the only,
their own desires,
you know, being in the only room, being in the room and being the only Muslim in the room, and first Muslim to do this. Like, everyone's kind of chasing a title, but for me it's like, if what you're doing is not purpose driven, I don't want no parts, and neither does TBMG. If you have a problem with that, then you've got a problem, like you said, with Islam, because this is not personal. Do you know what I mean? This is not, it's not a personal problem. I respect your hustle. I respect everything that you're doing. But from a distance, you know? Like, I'm going to love you from a distance. But I think the main thing is to make sure that we're being purposeful with what we're doing. And again, having honest discussions, because I feel like sometimes the way we as a community do discuss certain things is a bit, we need to work on it. Threads on Twitter is not going to do any justice, you know what I mean? Like, if you really want to advise someone, or you feel like something that someone's doing is not right, there's always the DM option. You don't need to quote tweet, you don't need to comment under their picture. There's a direct message button that we could all make use of. But yeah, I would definitely say it's the two things for me: being purposeful and honesty and transparency.
Yeah, I'm trying to just think of it from like the different platforms that that we've got. So we've got the Dabiri group, and I think we don't post like regular content because we don't feel the need to. It's only when things happen that we'll sort of post something and post about someone. But in terms of like the speakers that we have at the talk show, we emphasize the fact that in this space it's more like there's individuals who are there to give advice, and there's shuyukh about, and there's people who are leading salah, and those are like people of knowledge who we brought into the space to sort of ensure that we've got guidance around, but the space itself is just there for sort of discussion of experiences, and it's always sort of like positive sort of experiences and growth and sort of inspiration that's grounded within Islam. But in terms of what they do in their day-to-day basis, we don't actually bring that into the space in terms of like permitting what they do outside of the space, and sort of platforming them for things that aren't halal kind of thing. It's more about their experiences of Islam growing up, and their interactions with different Muslims. I think that's what the space is about. But I think more consciously when it comes to like my platform as a Black Muslim woman, like my personal page, I've obviously got an amana because of how many people follow me on that platform, and I have to choose very selectively about who I do platform and who I do like, you
100%.
know, put on my story and put on my feed, and who I'm like sort of raving about. And I think over the years I've become more conscious of just not posting everything, because of how people can take it, and also because you obviously have to be representing the right thing and the right type of people. And I think especially when like the first Muslim woman like does something, you'll see on everyone's story, and no one's having those conversations as to are we actually supposed to be celebrating what this Muslim woman is doing. And so what I've tried to do in recent years is that instead of like atting the person a couple of days afterwards, I do this thing on my story where I'm like, okay, so guys, this representation in terms of Muslim women, how do you guys
feel?
No, not just how does it make you feel, but more purposefully, how does that fit in with Islam? And that just get like on my platform, alhamdulillah, I think we've built a very sort of critical level of social media in the sense that everybody sort of questions things when they get to my platform, that it's like, yeah, Hafsa's not just going to repost it, she's going to ask you a question, sort of like have that interaction, and hopefully get to a place where I'm not giving advice, but I'm just getting people to think twice about reposting these things, because at the end of the day, we don't think about it, but all those tweets, all of those
100%.
likes, all of those comments,
100%.
you're going to be asked about them on a day of judgment,
100%.
and we're so quick to you know, to repost and to like and to, oh my gosh, mashallah sister, Allahumma barik, but
Breaking
what are you,
barriers.
what are you mashallah, and like it doesn't fit into what we're supposed to be aspiring for.
100%.
But I think it's about having those like reminders on social media. And then I think with the platform Muslim, that's like a huge responsibility. I think I just took over the publication like 3 months ago, and when I walked into the space, you know, there was a lot of things that were posted previously that I didn't necessarily agree with, and like even in that space, like I would have discussions, you know, with the other members of the team, and they'll be like, oh, Hafsa's coming with her Islam again, and like she's coming to tell us that we can't post TikToks, and we can't do that, we can't do this. And alhamdulillah, I think we're definitely getting to a place where you know, we even in terms of like the platform, I've built this thing for everyone who creates content where everything starts from Islam, and then all your ideas and content has to come from that. If it can't pass that barrier of Islam, don't bring that idea to me in the first place, because you know I'm going to shut it down, kind of thing. So I think no matter what you do, if it's using social media, if it's writing an
100%.
article, if it's posting a picture, start from Islam, and then if it doesn't pass that barrier of this is acceptable, and not even just acceptable, but does this count as an act of worship? If it doesn't, then there's no point. There's no point.
100%.
Okay, so with 100% in terms of what you guys are saying, just looking at it in terms of our journey as people who was on social media and YouTube like that, we're kind of people we're no longer on now. Since this platform, we've basically come back on it in terms of trying to give people opportunities to kind of get certain things out there. But as far as Roadside to Islam, we left YouTube and we kind of abandoned it because we just felt like it was going in a different type of direction from where we started. And then obviously it becomes difficult to kind of start justifying the type of content that you produce or maybe you post and put out there. But being someone who came from a Christian background, I feel like I have, and that background being a black background, there's a few obstacles. I don't know if you guys face them, but it might not be, is that there's a lot of people that we feel like we left behind. And with that, people that we left behind, not only did we leave them behind in terms of that we progressed and went forward and started living a new life, which is Islam, but what makes us feel like we left them behind is that sharing that culture and sharing that blackness and that universal struggle that we have as a people wherever we go. So example, there's people that I grew up with who might be famous artists, rappers, and doing what they're doing, and they're Muslim today, and some of them might be born Muslim, some of them are reverts, and I never post none of their content. So they can invite me to a dinner and I can go sit down, speak, and I kind of share my journey of where I am since I left them. And then obviously they're on TV, they're doing their stuff, and we can have that conversation. And a lot of the time the conversations we have is that them not being fulfilled in terms of life and where they're going and what they're doing and their purpose. But I'd never fail to tell them how proud I am of them, even though I don't agree with their way of life, which is music, something that I left behind. But I'm proud that you're not selling drugs. I'm proud that you're not in jail. I'm proud that you're not dead. I'm proud because what a lot of people don't understand, especially in our community, that we're at the forefront of one of, you know, the biggest cultures within that urban culture which transcends communities, and our community as black people at the forefront of that. So we're dealing with people who now, example, who, like something Muslim Bilal we always mention is that when we became Muslim, we just wanted to be legal. We wanted to stop doing illegal things, and one of the legal things that we could do was art, sport, music, whatever, and that made us become, you know, law-abiding citizens within the community who are paying their bills. So you find a young black kid who was selling drugs, shooting up the place, leaves that behind and becomes a law-abiding citizen by becoming an artist. He pays for an accountant, he pays for solicitors, he pays for, you know, a load of different professions to cater for what he's doing, and he's paying his taxes, and now he's become an upright citizen within the society that we live in, and he's making money, he's bought his mum a house, he's doing all of that. And then I come here as a Muslim and I say to him, well, it's all good and that, but it's haram in it, it's not nice, but I'm not feeling it. And then sometimes I've had those discussions with people who I grew up with, like, to the point that we have conversations and like, but you never post my things, or you never, but I've had that conversation with them where I don't agree with that, and I got my way. So if you post something, so they could post something about them being a good father or them taking their kid out, I'll come on there, I'll comment on that, like, I'd love to see that, you know, keep it up, respect, but I'm not going to comment on your music videos, I'm not going to comment on anything, because that's not what I stand for. But I think it's important as a community, because I feel like we have, it's not a monopoly on it, but I feel like we have, as a black community, a connection to other black people, Muslim or not, who at the same time we also have to have that olive branch where we can kind of connect with them and we're not too far distant. Because one of the things that I heard was that you became Muslim and you just left. Like, we don't hear from you, we don't see you, you don't talk to us, you don't, like, you just gone missing. You went to Egypt, we've never heard from you since. 10 years later we see you, you're doing your thing, but you know, they feel away, like they, you know, they feel like we used to roll every day, blah blah blah, but now it's like, so how aware are you guys of non-Muslims who are black, who are facing struggles, who are finding it difficult to navigate through the dunya, and are also having issues with their faith and thinking, you know what's this Islam thing saying? Like, it sounds good, it sounds proper, but there's a lot of racism in it. Let me see how the black sisters are moving. Let me see what they're doing, what they're getting up to. How, you know, how conscious are you of those girls trying to reach out to you guys? Do they reach out to you guys? And what are the type of steps that you have for them? Because sometimes people can just think they're going to think they're too good for me, or I think I do haram, I got a boyfriend, I got a kid, I got this. How am I going to go to these sisters who they're not on this type of stuff?
I think the best, like, form of da'wah in those circumstances is, like, offline. I think like there's sisters that I know, well, women that I know who I grew up with. They're amazing black women who a lot of them have that sort of desire for like something, like they might be Christian, but they'll come around me and they'll be like, you know, Hafsa, like this religion, like it's this, it's that, and you know, I see how you're moving with it, and it's something that I'm interested in. And I think it's about developing those offline relationships where you just sit down and you talk about things, you invite them into your home to have discussions, and they see how you're living and how you're speaking, and you know, they're seeing Muslims sort of in the black Muslims in the real life context of black Muslims. But I also think that when it comes to Muslims who have just come to the deen for sort of like the legal side of it, and they're sort of interacting with things that may not be like completely halal, I think that's why we have to create forms of those things that are halal, because I think creativity, as you said, that there's a lot of like creativity within the black community, but there's halal ways of doing that. So for example, the movie that we're working on, it's an opportunity for every single black Muslim woman who has ever thought, okay, I want to be an actor, to act in a space where they can wear full hijab, they can wear abaya, they can even wear niqab, and they can be in a space that's like everyone's praying, you know, on the break when we're recording things, or the things that we've written, and the purpose of it is like for Allah and is based within Islam kind of thing. So I think definitely creating spaces where, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never said that you can't be creative. There's obviously guidelines that you have to follow, but as long as you're, you know, following those guidelines, you can still explore those passions that you have, and that need that you have to sort of like, you know, just be creative, inshallah.
Okay, so how important do you think it is for people who are creative to tell their stories? Because there's a lot of people who are creative and just being online and telling their stories is not their thing. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of people who I know successful business owners, you know, young black people doing amazing stuff, Muslims they're just doing amazing stuff, but they're not on, you know, showing that, or they're not even that, it's just that's not them. So then a young kid, like I always tell people, like young kids on the block, the only reason they want to be drug dealers and they want to be gangsters is because that's what is visually there for them to see, because they see it, because the drug dealers are happy to come and flaunt their success. They're happy to come on the block with the cars, with the chains, with the girls, and say, this is what drugs has got me. And then you find the plumber or the carpenter or the, you know, electrician or the IT guy or whoever who has the same BMW, the same lifestyle, the same house, the same everything, who has got it in earning money in a good way, in a lawful way, doesn't have that same need, or doesn't think like they need to have that same purpose of showing it and letting it be seen. But like I always tell people, seeing is believing. There's a difference, you know, with the one, like the Prophet Muhammad said, so the one that sees is not like the one that doesn't see. There's a difference, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes the Prophet Muhammad will put two fingers up and say, like, you know, the one who supports an orphan is like me, like that, and he'll put his fingers up, so showing that, you know, that's something visually you have to see to understand. So I feel like sometimes seeing is understanding, and you know, being able to kind of foresee how maybe you can achieve something. Because I always tell brothers that I know that, listen, if you come and talk to these young kids and you tell them that you got your Range Rover from being a plumber or this and that, these young kids are going to be like, you sure? They'll be like, yeah. And we're like, all right, cool, let me try it. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what's happening. But how do you deal with people, maybe you guys know successful, you know, black Muslim women who are doing great stuff, but that's not their thing, they don't do that? How do you tell their story for them? How do you kind of get that out there? Because I think for me, representation is important, but what type of representation? And I feel like there is a lot of people doing amazing work in the community, but a lot of the people there, that's not their thing, you know, that's not for them to be seen like that.
I think for me, I don't know about your perspective, but I think when it comes to ideas of success, I think it's also putting things into perspective. I think the idea of the car being the epitome of success and the Rolex, unfortunately that is what young kids are thinking, and that's how we grew up as well. But when you put things into perspective, that at the end of the day, that person who has a Rolex and isn't praying their salah has lost. That person who has a Rolls Royce and doesn't fast in Ramadan and, you know, doesn't have a relationship with the Quran, that person has lost, type of thing. And I think when you put things into perspective that way, that people understand that, like, I think I always say this on my platform, like, death is like, you never know when it can come.
100%.
Like, it can literally come in a second,
100%.
and that's going to be the real determinant of success, whether or not you're happy to die in the next second, or you're happy to die, you know, tomorrow. And I think that's the perspective that we have to be pushing out, that we're
100%.
redefining what success
success
is.
means,
But
yeah.
at the same time, that doesn't mean that you just let your dunya kind of go to waste and you're not
100%.
working towards excellence. So I think definitely there does need to be that idea of representation of people who are successful and are doing things, so that young women and young men can see that. But it needs to be balanced, I think, with the Islam side of things, that, you know, this life isn't, it's not the end all and be all.
I think, yeah, I totally agree. And I think, like I've been saying this whole episode, I think everything for me just goes back to purpose. What is the purpose of sharing the story? Does it need to be shared? Because like I said, like, there's some stories that don't necessarily need to be shared. There's people doing
100%.
really good stuff, mashallah. Like I said, I respect what you're doing, but from afar, like, and I think for me, the biggest thing is purpose. Like, does it need to be shared? Do we need to be telling this story? And one thing that I've actually found with TBMG is we want to share success stories of Black Muslim women, but it's just so hard to find.
Yeah.
Like, other than my immediate circle, Hafsa and some other sisters, it's so hard to find stories of successful Black Muslim women. And I remember, I actually learned this from Hafsa. I remember when I first started TBMG, I didn't want anybody to know it was me that ran the platform, because it was like, this platform isn't me. It's not Khadija. I'm just behind it. I post, but the platform isn't me. So I completely took myself away from TBMG. Like, till this very day, well, I'm speaking on the mic, so people are going to know now. But I was going to say, till this very day, there's still some people that don't know who actually runs the platform. And it wasn't up until we went to America last year, December, and I didn't want to share it. I was like, nah, like, you're going to share it. People are going to think, like, maybe you're being a bit too, like, boastful, or, like, you're trying to show off and this, that. And then I remembered my younger sister, and especially now in the day and age of social media, and there's so many kids on social media, it hit me that if I don't share my own story that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me, that in itself has a negative effect, because and that's why I say purpose comes in, because I had to ask myself, okay, what is the purpose of sharing this story? Are you sharing it because you want people to know that you took TBMG to America, or are you sharing it as a form of representation? You want young Black Muslim girls to know that if they put their mind to anything and they walk with Allah, it can be done. So I think it's so important to just take everything back to the purpose and to the core. It's easy to say, oh yeah, we need to do this and we need to do that and we need to do this, that and the other. But if it's not purposeful and if it's not rooted in Allah, which I think is the most important thing, what's the point of doing it? I don't see the point.
I agree.
I agree. Okay, so the support network in terms of the community, the Black Muslim community, what are some of the problems you face within our own community, just trying to make things happen? Is there things that we can do to kind of educate? And that's maybe some of them aspects might be cultural, because like the Muslims, we're not one type of people, you know what I'm saying? We're from lots of different nations, tribes, like you said, and Black people is that the same, you know what I'm saying? Very tribalistic, many tribes within one part of the country, and let alone the whole, you know, continent. So I feel like, what are the challenges that you guys face as young people? What are things that some of the elders can do to support?
I think definitely going out to search for mentors rather than just assuming that your community is going to be supportive is really important. I was really let down a lot by placing my trust in like individuals and thinking that, oh, automatically because I'm doing this thing, my community is going to be really supportive. But unfortunately, like, my community were part of the last group of people to sort of support me in what I was doing. I sort of found my solace and sort of motivation within my home and within Allah. I think find mentors, like, first of all, get your home situation correct, get your parents on board as much as possible, because that's really going to help you in moments where you're thinking, you know, I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm lost and I need some advice. So definitely having your parents on board. And then I think looking outside and picking your mentors really selectively as to who has the knowledge, who has the experience, who has the wisdom of understanding how life in the West is, and sort of how to apply the spirit of the Sunnah within those situations, and putting them on speed dial as well. Like there's going to be so many questions that you're having that you're going to need to ask. But I think, yeah, the Black Muslim community is like any community. I think unfortunately we have very human issues of just like not supporting people until we see that they're doing well. Like when they have ideas and stuff, we'll be talking about it, we'd be really inspired, and we think, okay, yeah, everyone else is inspired. But if you don't have that motivation to do it for yourself and not to please other people and only to please Allah, you're not going to get very far. Like I know in the beginning stages, I've had like probably 3 different projects that I've started before I got to this place, and in the first couple of them I was like, it was actually the first project with Colourful Success, and it was with Wasim. He was the first person that I interviewed for that, and I would see like people like literally looking down at me for doing it, and they'd be like, you know, what are you doing? Like this has got no it's got no future in it, basically. And I had to sort of push past that and really sort of remember why I was doing it in the first place. And it's your why, and inshallah your connection with Allah, and the fact that you're doing it for his sake, that will keep you going, inshallah.
Totally agree with everything you said. I think, yeah, it's going back to your why. Understanding that human beings are never ever going to be satisfied. Whatever you do, whatever you don't do, this is how Allah has created us, you know. We're never ever going to be satisfied. So even like when I started TBMG, because my why was so solid, whenever a problem did arise, it didn't bother me, because if it wasn't in line with my why, it was like, okay, well, I wasn't doing it for that reason anyway, so if you don't like it, unfortunately there's nothing I could do for you, because I wasn't doing it for that reason. But yeah, like I think it's just going back to your why and literally understanding that people are never going to be satisfied. You do wrong, they're not going to be satisfied. You do good, they're not going to be satisfied. Your why is what is important, and definitely being open-minded and understanding that life is for learning. You're never going to get it right the first time. Like, so seek advice, go to people that have done it before, or go to people that are older than you, go to people of knowledge. Do you know what I mean? Like, soak it all up. Like, life is literally for learning. So it doesn't make any sense to start something and think that you're the only person that's going to get it from point A to point B. I think that's a very backwards mentality to have. You need people to grow. So go out there and go and find I like to call it my tribe. You know, go out there, create your own little community, the people that you can fall back on, that are not necessarily always your family members or your friends and all of that kind of stuff. Like when I started TBMG, I didn't want any of my friends to support it, not because they can't, but it's like, I'm not creating this for you guys. If you want to be a part, you can be a part, but you guys aren't the be all and end all sort of thing. Like I realize that a lot of people are very cliquey as well, and it's like, oh well, if my friend is not going to the event, then I'm not going to the event. You're lost then. That's how you want to be, that's how you want to be. I'm not going to force you to come. But I think for me, it's just going back to your why. When your why is solid, when you know why you're doing something, it's easier to kind of navigate through your journey. Because one thing that's always going to happen is there's always going to be trials and tribulations. You're always going to face some kind of backlash, or you're always going to face something that's promised. You know what I mean? Life in itself is a test. You know what I mean? So it's like, once you know your why, it makes it easier to kind of pick and choose the trial and tribulations that you actually want to pay attention to, because some of them you don't necessarily need to pay attention to. So yeah, going back to your why.
Okay, and with Black Lives Matter, and obviously everything that's gone on in 2020 with, you know, the scenes that we've seen on TV in America and things like that, and then people coming out and marching here in the UK and trying to create some type of narrative of, you know, creating change for us here as black people. What's the impact on Black Lives Matter and stuff like that? What impact has it had on you guys in the spaces that you work or the spaces that you're in? Have you seen a change within, you know, the Muslim, if you work in Muslim spaces or you're part of Muslim organizations? What's the impact that it's had for you? Have you seen that you've been pushed to the forefront of conversations and people want to know more? Or are we still, as a wider Muslim community, still behind trying to catch up with what everyone else is doing in society, as we find big organizations like, you know, Nike and Adidas, Puma and Sky and whatever, everyone's creating trust funds, you know, to tackle some of the you know, poor representations of black people within their organizations and companies. How are you finding that in the spaces that you're working in?
I think I'm gonna call it the like tug of war. That's what I'm gonna call it, in a sense where I've seen like people from the Muslim community that have been open to discussion and have like they've had the eagerness to like the willingness to listen not for the sake of listening but active listening, so listening because they actually want to understand. I've seen a lot of people from the Muslim community going, I don't want to say over and beyond because I think you're doing the bare minimum. We're brothers and sisters, this is what you're meant to be doing, but going out of their way to kind of like share their stance on the whole topic and kind of pushing us forward in a sense. And I feel like now there's a lot more honest conversations that are actually happening. On the other hand, and this is why I'm calling it tug of war, because it's like we're literally pulling back and forth. On the other hand, I remember when the whole protest thing started, and I had to come off of Twitter because good sis was seeing some tweets that was like
Questionable.
You know, I'm seeing like, where's like
Where's this energy
for like the Palestinians and our brothers and sisters in Gaza and all of this kind of stuff. And don't mistake me, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that their lives don't matter as well, or that situation isn't as important, but
there's
why
just a
is
time
it
and place,
there's definitely a time and place. And why is it when we're talking about Black Lives Matter, that's when all of a sudden, what about the brothers and sisters in Gaza? And my thing is, you go to Muslim events, you check all of these Muslim charities, our brothers and sisters in Gaza, in Syria and all of that kind of stuff, they are the epitome of a lot of these organizations. I'm not saying that they like we don't need to do more work, but for me it's just that why is there always that comparison? Like, I even saw someone say BLM is haram. Sorry, I'm asking for the right to live. I'm asking, like, all we're asking for is the right to live. That's all it means. Black lives matter. Our lives matter as well. And you're telling me that it's haram. So okay, it's haram for me to live because I'm black. So this is why I call it like tug of war, because it's like we're going forward and then you get the people that just want to, and it's like, are you doing it on purpose or do you actually think like that? I need to know now, because if you actually think like that, where do we go from here? Like, I can't save you. But if you're doing it on purpose, you need to grow up. So I feel like it's definitely like, it's tug of war. We're going, it's like we're taking 100 steps forward and then 1,000 steps back. And it's like, when are we ever going to reach that point where it's like, okay, I don't...
Yeah. I think, we'd been doing what we do since before sort of BLM sort of erupted again in the last couple of months. And so when everything started happening, at first I was like, okay, look, a movement. This is good. Every once in a while we need a wake-up call and we need to reignite what everybody, like grassroots people are already kind of doing within their communities. So I thought, okay, good. A couple weeks into it, I was seeing what, like, the response from some of the Muslim community and some of the people from sort of Arab and Asian backgrounds, and I just logged off. I logged off of Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everything, because it was really embarrassing and it was really disappointing to sit there and see the comments, because it was coming from a place of bias. The fact that you have equated the Muslim identity to those from Palestinian and sort of those community backgrounds, and neglected to understand that there's also Black Muslims within that Black Lives Matter sort of hashtag that you're saying doesn't matter, and saying, you know, why are people supporting it? Why not? Because there's Black Muslims included within that majority as well. And so for me, it was like, we've just taken so many steps backwards, and I'm not ready to come from a place of anger 100%. When I'm sort of interacting with those things. So when I came back online, I went through my inbox and I had so many like messages from communities that were just like, Hafsa, we want to get you on this Zoom session and this phone call and this and that to talk about, you know, anti-blackness in the Muslim community and this and that. And I thought, okay, let me sit down and get my actual thoughts together. And I had to have a lot of conversations at that point as well, because I was just so angry. And that's not a productive emotion when it comes to trying to sort of educate and find a solution. So I then made a video on my YouTube just to basically ensure that my platform at least knew my perspective on it and understood that, okay, if you're going to come with that energy, you might as well just leave now, because that's not what we're here for. But I think essentially what it did to the Muslim community is that we were asking more questions and thinking more critically about, okay, how does anti-blackness actually sort of affect the structures that are in place? Why do we not have shuyukh that are teaching our kids that are from black backgrounds within our entire institution? Why are we not platforming sheikhs and people of knowledge who have studied in Medina and come back, and we're not giving them the platform to speak in lectures? Why are we not addressing the issues of racism within our community, the issues of violence towards Muslims within our communities? And I think that was a great place to start from. So I was trying to involve myself more in those conversations rather than dealing with the Twitter warriors, because it wasn't going to bring any benefit at all. But I think one of the things that I was going to say something. Oh, it's gone from my mind. Yeah, I just think that there was a lot of really good questions that were asked around that time. So alhamdulillah, it was a push forwards. But then it kind of like died down at the same time. And I think there is a lot more work for the Muslim community to do. But also around the same time, obviously, it wasn't just the Muslim community it was going through it, but I started a job in marketing. So basically looking at creeds and cultures and marketing from that perspective, so diversity marketing and ensuring that businesses and brands were sort of marketing to the right people. And in the conversations that we were having, it was quite clear that like these people knew nothing about Muslims, or they knew nothing about black people, and they kind of just were like, okay, yeah, create a campaign for Eid, create a campaign for this. And so one of the areas of the business that I'm trying to develop now is like actually changing institutions and training people to understand their biases, changing the recruitment process so that there isn't sort of biases against black people that are stopping them from getting jobs in the first place. And I think that's how we need to be looking at it within the Muslim community as well. But one of the things that was really powerful to me that Ayo said, he's like a medical student, but he like is very involved in like activism and is part of FOSIS as well. He was saying that this was the perfect opportunity for Islam to come with a solution. As soon as the BLM movement started, if we didn't divide amongst ourselves and people start saying, you know, why are you involved in this? We could have provided a solution that was based within the Sunnah and the Quran. We could have come as people that were like trying to unite people and try to, the same way that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ brought Bilal radiallahu anhu closer to him, we could have platformed our black Muslims like that and said to people, look, we've got solutions, we've got strategies, we've got this, but we failed. We did as a community, so we've got to do better, inshallah.
Yeah, that's deep. We're going to end on sisterhood in terms of the sisterhood and the interactions that sisters have with each other from all backgrounds as Muslims in terms of supporting each other, pushing each other forward. I tend to find that brotherhood and sisterhood are two different type of things in terms of how sisters are, especially with just a lot of the work that we've done in the past with Roadside to Islam, and even just trying to mentor the young people and some of the young sisters who might message us for advice, guidance and stuff like that, and trying to push them into directions of other women-led organizations that we believe are, you know, should have the means to help, and them not really wanting to be a part of those organizations or not feeling like, you know, they fit or they can be there. How is the sisterhood, and do you tend to find a better connection with sisters abroad, like in places like America and Canada and stuff, than you do in the UK? What's the climate of sisterhood today that you guys find?
Go for it.
Yeah, I think it is definitely quite different. I think I was speaking to, I've spoken to a lot of American Muslims recently, and I've realised that because of like the relationships that they have in terms of like the different types of Muslim and like from NOI to like those who are Pontalafiyya and then those who are like more Sunni Shia, they kind of they're so used to that mix that there's never truly a clash. They can all be in the same masajid and no one will know that they sort of follow different things because they're all praying the same, well, most of them are all praying salah the same way. And so I think when it comes to our community in the UK, I don't know what the reason is, but we're a lot more cliquey when it comes to I'm from the Maliki fiqh, you're Hanafi, you know, this is my group of girls, or you're upon Salafiyya and you're...
So the girls have this as well, yeah?
Yeah, 100%. There's definitely a lot of cliques, but it's not, I don't think it's something that's said. It's just more naturally that like they'll just go out and they'll do their own thing and they'll have their own platform. But as an individual, like for me, I would say that how would I describe myself? I would say that I'm a Sunni Muslim, but you know, I wouldn't distinguish that ability for me to sort of be upon Salafiyya as well. Like that doesn't that there isn't sort of a barrier there for me. So I think, I don't know, I think it's just the way that people label themselves stops those conversations from even happening in the first place. If somebody was part of a different madhab and wanted to learn more or wanted to sort of experience other things, it's really hard for them to do that because of the barriers that we've built and it's like a unsaid animosity and like I'm better than this person, I've got this more knowledge than that person, that you can't share that knowledge and share that understanding to find common ground or to just educate people and help ourselves better ourselves. But I think because of how I grew up as well, so my parents are Nigerian and the Maliki madhab is the majority on that side of Africa. But the family friends that I grew up with in the UK were mainly Salafiyya. So it's more for me, I find it easier to sort of reach over that divide, especially within the ISOC. It was really easy for me to like talk to the sisters and have those sort of relationships. But I know that a lot of other sisters that came in not necessarily knowing a lot about Islam saw the ISOC and was like, yeah, this is not a bit of me at all, and they kind of just walked out of the space. So I think it's really important that when it comes to knowledge and like making people feel comfortable, we look at how the Prophet Muhammad how he interacted with people and how he was able to reach over those divides, and he didn't, there wasn't a clique, there wasn't, oh, you can't be a part of this. It was always like, come as you are, and we'll share that knowledge, and if you take something away, you take something away, and if you have more questions, you know, feel free to ask those questions. And I think from my perspective as well, I teach little kids, and I think I learn a lot from their interactions amongst one another, and it kind of really helps to even teach me how I need to be around other people, because I see them interacting and asking questions and feeling comfortable enough to ask things that if they ask, you know, the other teachers, for example, they'd get in trouble. So I think, yeah, definitely creating those spaces that Muslim sisters can just ask questions regardless of, you know, what the background is, because at the end of the day, our aqeedah should be the same. 100%. That's the foundation. So if it is, what's the problem in us sort of having those relationships and having those discussions, inshallah?
Yeah, same actually, like similar upbringing as well. Being able to like just dip into whatever type of group it was, because I grew up in a very multicultural Muslim background, and it would be so funny, like I'll be with like the sisters that are upon Salafiyya and stuff, and I'll be talking to them and they'll be looking at me so surprised, like, oh, like, you know all of that? Like, I know I don't look like you, but you know. And I feel like it's even stuff like that. There are a lot of sisters that do want to kind of build more solid sisterhood type friendships and seek knowledge, but there's this I don't know what it is in the UK, and I always say it, but there's this weird barrier that kind of just, I don't know, it stops sisters from integrating within each other, and I don't really get what it is. I don't know. And alhamdulillah, through that, as of recent, I set up another platform called Thrive Tribe, which the aim is to allow Muslim women to reclaim who they are with each other, because I feel like you get so many sisters that do want to come to Islam, do want to get stronger in their deen, but they don't know where to go because it's so cliquey, like there's this group or there's that group or then this group and all of that kind of stuff. And I feel like away from the cliques and away from this group, that group, the sisterhood should be stronger than what it is, in the sense where I know so many sisters that would rather seek knowledge from brothers rather than sisters, but it's not because there aren't any knowledgeable sisters, it's because there isn't that strong unity that I would say the brothers have, for example. Do you know what I mean? Like, so you find sisters not trusting each other when it comes to the knowledge, because it's like, oh no, but like the brothers are united, so they must know. So it's like it's little stuff like that that I think really do play a part, sort of thing. Like there's discussions that we should be having as sisters that we can't have because either someone feels like they're going to say the wrong thing or someone feels like they're going to be told off, or it's like there's no safety. I think that's what it is. There's no actual safety for the general, should I say, Muslim women. There isn't like an actual safe space where she can go and she feels as if this is my, maybe there's a few now that I'm thinking of it, but taking it back, there's none.
The Muslim Renaissance is one, but they don't have a platform like that. It's more events and stuff.
I was thinking of Amalia.
Oh yeah.
But I still but yeah, I think that's what it is. There's no there's no togetherness. I mean, even like with TBMG, like the difference in support that it receives from the sisters in the UK in comparison to the sisters in America is completely different. Like you would think you would think we're dealing with different people. We are. But it is completely different. I mean, like, the sisters in America are willing to do all and, like, everything for that platform. Whereas you bring it to the UK and it's like, I don't know if it's just everyone...
Don't you think it's like that because of the history, though?
I do think that's very true. I do feel like when it comes to America and Black history and, like, community, they're very, very big on that. So I will give them that. But then it's like, one thing I've realised with us in the UK is we don't like to feel like we're begging it. So it's like people won't support something or people won't come to a community because it's like, they don't want to be begs and all of that kind of stuff. Whereas with the Americans, they're more free spirit. If they like what you're doing, they're letting you know that they like what you're doing. And I think that is what we have when it comes to like the sisters and the sisterhood that we have in the UK. It's either, like, she's not one of us because she's not just the way that we are and da-da-da-da-da. But for me, it's like, okay, she's not one of you, but if you want her to become one of you, you need to accept her as she is. You need to bring her in. You can't just expect her to walk in, see you all one type of way and then feel comfortable. You need to kind of like open that door for that sister. Like, I get so many sisters that DM me certain things that they think is really, really bad. I don't personally agree with it, but I'm not going to shun her off for it because one, it's not really my place to shun you off for it. Whatever you do is between you and Allah. But secondly, it's given her the comfortability to feel like she can have these discussions. And I think the main thing, the most important thing is akhlaq. The best form of deen is through your character. So in order for us to have a stronger sisterhood, I think it's important that we start actually checking our characters as individuals so we can build that safe space for Muslim women. Like with the brothers, I feel like you guys are brutally honest with each other. Do you know what I mean? Like you see a brother doing something wrong, you're gonna pull him up, bro. That is not cool. Let's talk about it. Whereas with the sisters, it goes two ways. It's either we're gonna send her lots of backlash and say, astaghfirullah, your hair is coming out, sister, you're going to hell, or we're not gonna say nothing. There's no in between. And I feel like as women, we need to start having those honest conversations where it's like, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, I'm not trying to make you feel some type of way, but let's start having those honest conversations. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like that's definitely something that we lack as a whole. Like I said, there's no in between. There's either you're getting it straight down your neck or no one wants to say anything. But
I think it's also in terms of reception. I think even until recently, like there wasn't enough discussion as to, okay, we've got to give advice the right way, but whether or not it's given wrong or right, there's something you can take away from that advice.
100%,
And I don't think that's pushed out enough in the sense of, even if this person is saying, okay, look, your hair's out, you're going to hell, you can't just shut it down and say, because that person has given the advice in the wrong way, I'm not going to take anything from
100%.
that. And I think it comes down to like just being really honest with yourself.
100%.
And I always say that, like, when it comes to, I did a video recently on my platform about social media and the fact that a lot of people like to basically just like envision that they don't have any responsibility when they have a platform, and that's the complete opposite. Like
100%.
you know, if you're putting something out there, you're going to have to be able to defend that thing, and people are going to take from it whether or not you want them to.
100%.
So why are we not more conscious about what we're putting out there? And when
100%.
people advise you, why are you not reflecting on that?
100%.
Like, even if it's hurt your feelings, it's hurt your feelings for a reason.
100%.
100%. So yeah, I think it's just reflecting as sisters as well, like obviously advice has to be given the right way, and that's an important reminder. But also, even if the advice isn't given the right way, as sisters, we've got to just be more conscious of like taking the good from it and leaving the bad.
I think actually quickly to add on, kind of like what we were talking about before we started recording the podcast about how we don't speak enough about the Sahabiyat of the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which I think is very, 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 very emphasis on the very important. And I feel like maybe that's why when it comes to the sisterhood, it's very shaky, because when it comes to the brotherhood, they know who they're looking towards. Do you know what I mean? They got like Abu Bakr Siddiq, they got Umar bin Khattab, and all of those sort of people. So it's like, like I want to be the Umar bin Khattab of my friends. You know what I mean? I want to like, our relationship is like the relationship between Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr Siddiq and all of that kind of stuff. They have these kind of like relationships that they can look towards to implement role models. Perfect. 100%. That they can look towards to kind of implement in the brotherhood. Whereas when it comes to the sisters, the question that we need to start asking is, do we have the role models? Because we definitely do, but are we studying them enough? Do you know what I mean? Are we studying the relationship that, what's it called, Aisha radiallahu anha had with Salma, like all those type of things? Are we studying the relationship with Nusayba? And do you know what I mean? Like, are we actually going to study these things? Because if we are, then it will be easy for us to kind of like take their characters, take what they used to do and kind of implement it into sisterhood. Or are we just studying that Khadija radiallahu anha was a successful businesswoman? Because I think when it comes to us, that's it, and that's where it stops. Like, Khadija was successful, I can be successful too. But it's like there was more to her as a woman. Do you know what I mean? Like, go read about Nusayba radiallahu anha. She was like, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told them, give the sword to someone that's going to use it, and he was talking about Nusayba. So when you learn about the women in Islam, it's like, how can you not try and cultivate a sisterhood that's that strong? Do you know what I mean? So
I think also it's like acknowledging that there was such a variety. 100%. Because a lot of the time when it comes to sisterhood, if the sister isn't exactly how you are and she doesn't fit the standard and the look and the like, she doesn't have like the same sort of softness or whatever, they kind of sort of like neglect to acknowledge that that's also a person who could eventually actually become a person of goodness, and or just, you know, or just be someone who is upon the faith that the way that they should be. And like, even in the comparison of Aisha radiallahu anha to Khadija radiallahu anha, like Khadija was obviously Aisha radiallahu anha was obviously a lot more playful with the Prophet. She had, you know, a character that was more cheeky, and like there were certain characteristics that are like we see in our young people now, and then we'll push it down instead of like trying to interacting with her and like nurturing her the way that she is. So I think definitely coming to people in a way that they can understand, inshallah, especially sisters.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a wonderful point in terms of having those salaf to look back to in terms of examples of some of the things that we can do today, because a lot of the time, especially with the new generation and us growing up, a lot of the times we feel like we're the first to go through certain obstacles and trials, but nothing's really new under the sun. It's all been done, the trials have all been set, and people who came before us went through them, and they kind of perfected this religion and this way of life and how to implement it and move forward. And I feel like within that space, it allows you to be more comfortable knowing that people came before you, went through the exact same trials, and were able to overcome them with patience and perseverance, and just hold it on to the Quran and Sunnah and moving forward like that. Well, we're going to end the show with just you guys letting us know, you know, what's to come, inshallah, with your platforms. What are the plans? We know 2020 kind of derailed everybody, but how do you see your platforms moving forward? What can the people expect?
Right, someone asked me this question literally the other day, and I started like giving a roll of plans. Oh yeah, we plan on doing this, that and the other, and then it hit me, we plan, but Allah plans. So even if I sit here and tell you all the plans that we have, they might not come to fruition because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala plans. So moving forward,
is there any things that you guys are thinking of doing, like that's like we're going into the new realm of everything being based at home, online,
it's
online,
been very difficult because we're obviously very events based, so we have like events every 2 months, every 3-4 months. So not being able to do that has been very, very difficult. Like, subhanallah, it's been hard. So yeah, I think one of the new things that we are trying to work on is kind of shifting that community more online. So yeah, with the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because
Sure.
I honestly, I can't do it. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm absolutely winging it right
Same.
now, literally.
What do you guys think of the Black Muslim Festival and that
Yeah,
taking
that's
place?
literally what I was
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
say.
yeah. Yours, what's
I'm hosting
next
a
week
panel.
Friday?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, together again. Huh.
Yeah.
But yeah, things like that. I think things like that are really amazing, really great. But yeah, a lot of the stuff that we're doing is more geared towards what we got coming next year,
Okay.
inshallah. So look
Inshallah.
out for
Mm.
one of the really big things that we want to do next year is the Black Muslim Awards.
Okay,
Inshallah khair. So
Inshallah.
that's kind of like what we're working on now, and we're also working on a magazine called Bold. So the type of representation that we want to see, and the type of representation that kind of fits the teaching of Islam. So those are the kind of like the two things that we're working on at the moment.
Yeah, so inshallah next year we should have 2 books coming out, inshallah. We've also got the movie that we're working on, inshallah. So if you want to support that, please donate to the campaign. We're currently crowdfunding to be able to make a short, and we've got some really amazing people. Like the vision for the movie is like literally for it to be something that, you know, no music, like just vocals only, that the characters are talking about deen and culture and like the very real things that we're going through, finding solutions based in the Quran and Sunnah, and it's obviously based off of the book Basira the Basketballer says inshallah, and just teaching our kids really valuable lessons. So if you're looking for entertainment, that's like literally based within the teachings of Islam, and is there to entertain but obviously inspire our kids in terms of faith, then please do support it. We don't have enough entertainment out there, and we can't keep on giving excuses. There's so many movies that came out during this time that we were in quarantine that everyone was just like, this is completely like not the representation we need. It's not good representation of Black Muslims or Muslims at all. And we like to talk and we like to complain, but when it comes that people are actually providing solutions, we don't necessarily give them the time of day. So if this is what you want and you want this movie to come to your screens, inshallah, please do support us in helping it come to fruition, and provide us with advice as well. This isn't a movie for us, it's a movie for all of our kids. So if there's something you want to see, something you don't want to see, do let us know, inshallah, and we'll make sure to make it as on deen as possible. That's all we want, inshallah. And yeah, I think those are the 2 things. Also, if you're looking to get your kids into writing, or you as an individual want to get into writing as well, we've got some courses available. So if you check out the link in my bio, you can register your interest, inshallah, and it's really affordable and just a way of you understanding how to get into publishing, getting your stories down, and writing from a place of faith and culture, which is not necessarily what we see in books nowadays. Everything is getting pushed towards sort of being faithless and sort of not grounded within morals and principles, but we want to bring that back, inshallah. So yeah, if you're looking to do a course on that, do sign up.
Inshallah, that's a good look. So I'm gonna we're gonna put all the links in the bottom of the description of the videos, so I'm sure that the guys can come back to your pages and find that. Follow, subscribe, and what's the other one? Comment, like, notifications, all of that. Till next time, we're out. Yeah, I'm out.
Bye, girl.